show. You're here with me, Amaya. Now, during the past weeks, we have looked at some of the success stories of leading corporations here in Sri Lanka who have strengthened their presence in the market by going public. And we've also brought to you the best insights from industry experts. So on today's program, we will take a look back at some of the highlights of our journey so far and bring you the best of what we have shared on this groundbreaking new series, Going Public. So let's take a look.
So Tara, tell me, when you first arrived back here in Sri Lanka as a young girl, what were your plans? Did you ever believe that you'd be here, head of a huge listed corporate?
No, not at all. I mean, that was really not the plan, and it happened by chance. But you know, I'm really happy it happened, and it's been a long journey, starting from virtually nothing, and then eventually coming to bringing Odell to bring a publicly listed company. So there've been different steps along the way, and many years of a lot of hard work and different stages of where the company has had to go through. But it's definitely been a very exciting journey.
So what made you go public? What was the primary driving reason?
I just think when a company comes to a certain level, I think it's time to look at it in a different way, and it was really looked at on where does the company go from where it was at that time, how does the company grow, what is the future, what is the best possible way forward for the company, and as much as it was very difficult for me to make a decision to let go of the company I founded, it was the right time to do it, and I just felt, as the company has developed, it comes to a point where you just feel it is the right thing to do, and it's right for the company, and that really was the basis of the decision, was that it was the right thing to do, for the company.
So financing plus the structural changes, or what were you hoping that, for example, that this could be a bigger company by listing? Is it the financing that was driving your decision?
Yes, a combination of things. One was financing to be able to grow the company and to take it to the next level. Plus, I'm making it a much more professional organization and something with value to add a value to the company. I think we also tried, approaching various investors. There was always, disputes, or not disputes, but couldn't really agree on a value, because one would say one thing and we would think it was worth something else.
Right.
And so that things like that were happening as well, and really we thought this was the best way to move forward.
So what kind of other forms of capital would you all have looked at before making the decision? Why I'm asking this is, obviously there are many companies that are currently listed, and there are companies that are not listed. Given that this program is trying to address companies that are either on the verge of listing, or maybe even trying to convince people who may have not even decided that this is a good opportunity. So I think it's necessary for us to figure out what was the mindset starting as an entrepreneur and starting a small company, then developing it to a very large company before going public. I guess it's like, obviously, it must have been difficult for you to transit and thinking of giving up your company. Did you feel of it like that?
Yes, I did, and it's when you started something and you're very much a part of the business for many years, and then suddenly you have to let go of even though I was still would continue running the company. It is a change. It is a mindset change. How the company is managed is different, and there is definitely a change overall that I had to get used to. But as difficult as it was a good change, both for me personally and for the company. And I just think it was a very positive move.
Positive change. Sanjay, anything to add to that?
I think in terms of the balance sheet as well, it's about like growing, you know, there's a certain amount you could leverage as well. And at that point, I think Otara felt that there was a need to go to the equity market so that it will clean up the balance sheet and also give the opportunity to grow even bigger and faster, and that has been the reason, and from there onwards I think we haven't really looked back on that decision.
So would it be correct to assume that at a certain stage, if you don't move it to the next level, that you kind of feared that you'd be stagnant at that small company, and if you went public, you know, it opens up a whole plethora of, you know, different avenues? Is that what?
Yeah, I think it all depends on the capital options you have. I mean, debt is obviously one, private equity is one, getting in strategic investors, as well as the equity market. I think if you plan your growth in a certain way, and the way Odell had planned it, it seems like the correct thing to do at that stage was to go public, and I think it opened the door for much more bigger things than taking the route of debt option.
Do you think the present economic situation or the environment is all right for companies to get listed? Arjuna?
Yeah, I think it's very much conducive, because if you really see, today we are having a low interest regime at this moment of time, and stock market becomes a good alternative for investors, yielding a fair return. And so from a demand side, if you really could see, there could be investors who would be really interested in stocks and debt instruments that are yielding well. And from a listing corporate's point of view, the price multiples that prevail in the market now looks very reasonable, allowing them to realize the right value for their companies and, you know, corporate bodies. So all in all, and also given the potential that the country has for growth and development, I think there is optimism for growth in the stock market. So if you take all this into account, I believe the economic conditions are very ripe for a takeoff in the capital markets, in the stock market.
How about you? Anything to add to that?
Yes, I think endorsing what Arjuna says, there are a few other things to also bear in mind. The country today is without the most critical risk which it faced during the past 3 decades, which was country risk with an internal civil conflict. And without that, certainly everything else, I think, is relatively in a lighter scale. So I think the optimism is very high. The second thing is the country itself is bracing itself for a different degree of growth in the next decade in relation to the previous decade. So there is certainly an incentive for the capital market to also play its true meaningful role in the nation's economic growth. So there is an opportunity. Of course, saying that at this particular juncture, we are seeing some profit taking from some of the international institutional funds because of a general exit from emerging markets, some profit taking, but that is those windows come and go, those spots come and go, and I believe for every little glitch where a foreigner goes out, there will be a domestic who will buy. So I think that should not be a dampener. I think the overall macro fundamentals certainly point in the right direction for listings.
Right. Of course. I mean, given the history that we have dealt with over the last couple of decades, this is certainly seems to be obviously a better time to list yourself in the stock exchange. So talking of which, as from a chamber's point of view, the companies that you represent, have they been holding back, or is it the factor of not having enough knowledge, or what is the factor that may not have, they haven't come in on board yet?
See, a decision to list has to have a compelling reason. More often, the need to access the capital market, and generally a business tends to come to the capital market for long-term financing after exhausting the natural means, which tends to be bank financing. And unless a business is growing at a speed and scale where it is reaching out to a different paradigm, very often it sits in its own comfort zone, surrounded by liquidity in the banking system, supporting its short to medium term requirements. So there is a very little incentive to dilute ownership and look at listing.
What people may not realize is that the value proposition of listing, if you really see, people see the continual listing requirements, the requirements to adhere to best practices in governance as a burdensome aspects. Now, once you put in place the processes and the systems to be able to fulfill these requirements, these are aspects that happens automatically, and that focused manner in which it's been done definitely creates value to corporates. We've seen that, and there is in fact research data which shows that the value proposition is great. If you talk about the requirement to, let's say, have internal controls in place to ensure proper financial statements are produced, if you talk about the requirement to have risk management practices in place, if you talk about the requirement to have independent directors,
So these are all good things.
all good things which adds value to business. So, so the proposition that I am trying to elucidate is that this fear of having burdensome processes and systems to adhere to when you list, and the cost involved in that processes will pay for itself because the value proposition is greater. And the other aspect of people losing control, I spoke about it earlier also. We have very clearly seen if the company, as company grows, and company goes larger, we have seen companies, actually owners controlling companies with stakes in the range of 30 to 40%. So you don't really need to have 51% to have a control, because it's so widespread. The company is so large that there is no way someone could actually come and take control that easily. And also, as you very rightly said, the second generation of people are now well educated overseas. They've seen the sophisticated corporate environments, and easier for, I think, the families to get the second generation to come. If you have companies which are listed, which are actually more professional, and to attract the second generation to come and work for those companies, and also to contribute to the growth of the corporate sector, I'm sure it'll help.
From the corporates that are not listed, what is holding them back? Is it size? Is it the bureaucracy?
Well, I think it's a combination of factors. One is certainly size, and as I said, the need. Are we growing at a sufficient speed to go that extra mile, or can we be happy with the traditional sources? That's one. The second thing is, of course, you've got to bear in mind, however attractive this is as a tool of raising money, when a company decides to go public and list, it has to realize that it is no longer me doing it my way, because now you are inviting the general public also to take part ownership in this business, and there has to be a certain decorum and a framework in which the company is going to have to handle this manner in terms of a governance structure, the ability and willingness to have outsiders to look into your books and your business model, to be able to respect the views and the needs of minority owners, not only majority, which means paying a fair dividend at a reasonable time, having a set of books which are prepared in a transparent and a robust manner, all those have to be a part of the journey, not just going out there knocking at the door and raising money. And secondly, it's not just a one-off exercise in preparing itself to go into the market. You also need to have the right mindset of those promoters to be able to walk the talk and keep on raising the bar of expectation once they go into the public domain. And that's not something which everybody, every business is willing to do.
What's the story behind Laughs?
It's a unique story. That's why our recent annual report, we selected the theme, a story of a great Sri Lankan company. Laughs was started as a tiny little enterprise in 1995, focusing to enter into the energy sector of this country. In 1995, at the time we managed to enter into the energy sector, it was a very highly volatile situation as a result of the broader socio-economic and political environment of this country. The energy sector was basically in the hands of multinational foreign companies. Politically and socially, we were a disturbed nation as a result of 30 years of the disruption. So we found the entry looking at long-term prospects, and we slowly managed to enter into the energy sector, which is globally recognized as highly volatile, highly competitive, which is mainly dominated by oil major companies or state-owned companies. Today, that tiny little company that we started in 1995 has become a public listed company owned by the public of this country. So we are very proud that little enterprise that we created have generated wealth, created value, and share it with ordinary people of this country.
When you decided to go to list to public, what was your compelling reason?
The main reason that compelled us to list the company was our future, securing the future. Normally, if you look at most of the enterprises like us, which normally initiated by either entrepreneurs like me or set of people who are willing to take the risk, who can see things that others can't see, identifying opportunities, bearing the risk, they start. They find the entry point, and then slowly they grow with various challenges and obstacles, and understanding the macro business environments. They slowly grow. The enterprise will grow together with the life cycle of the entrepreneur. And at a certain point, if you do not manage to separate the enterprise and the entrepreneur, then the sustainability on the long run has a great doubt. So what we wanted to do is, as a truly Sri Lankan organization which want to grow and sustain, we wanted to introduce a lot of disciplines into the organization. And we have seen a lot of Sri Lankan examples where the person who initiated, who started the business, failed to transform the organization or take it into the next level. And along with his life cycle, sometimes he hand over the business to his next generation, or he fails to take it to the next level, and then it becomes a family business. So what we wanted from the early days to make it as a long, sustainably growing Sri Lankan enterprise, which can be one day become a global company.
Right.
So we recognize certain prerequisites. Firstly, we need to have professional management to be embedded into the system. We want to separate individualism and the organization. then we need to have a lot of disciplines in various sectors, include financial discipline, management disciplines, like that. So therefore, when looking at various options, we felt that taking our company and listing in the Colombo Stock Exchange would be the most ideal option we have.
But at what point did you decide that this is the time to list?
Well, we knew that we looked at the macro, socio and political environment of this country. We knew that looking at the regional level, almost all the countries in the Asian region was growing. They economically growing. We are next to one of the fastest growing economies in the world, India. And on the other hand, we have China. Most of the Asian countries were growing. Unfortunately, we could not do it due to some internal problems, we all know. So we knew this problem could not continue forever. There will be time that we will find a solution. We were very futuristic. We recognize sooner or later this is going to be over. We have to get ready. And so we planned it. And then same time, the financial market was also very promising. New companies were coming for listing. There were additional funds available. Retailers were very enthusiastic. So we felt that we want to do it. But you can't do it overnight. Before we actually list the company, at least 2 years prior to how it happened, we got ourselves ready. Lot of homework we had to do.
Had to be done.
Introducing proper management system. We had all the systems in place, but we had to discipline within our organization before listing the company.
So can we expect more subsidiaries to come out in the market as, of course, if you are allowed to disclose these things, your future plans, will you be bringing out new companies to the public and let the public share your,
LAFS is a group of companies. We have almost 20 companies within the group. Actually, best thing yet to come. We have almost planned few more companies. We are ready to do it. I think within very short period of time, we are planning to list a few more companies. One day we want to list almost all the companies.
Fantastic.
Because we now enjoying the benefits, and it's not a business secret, but we are enormously benefited as a result of listing our first company. It was a very good learning experience, but now we have mastered that process. So soon we will be listing, and I always encourage our Sri Lankan local entrepreneurs to take the same route. If they do that, surely they will have a lot of positive things which will add to their business growth.